Hey everyone, Will Brink here, brinkzone.com, in my usually messy office, and little unshaved, but you guys don't come here for fancy, pretty offices and me looking pretty. You come here for common sense, evidence-based, easy to understand information. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to cover a really popular topic, which is the GLP-1 agonist drugs, which are, well, become very, very popular. I haven't really made a lot of commentary about them because, as usual, I try to, when it comes to anything, I try to take my time to understand things, not just read the science or read the papers, but I prefer there to be a fair amount of clinical experience before I comment on certain things, which there has now been. I also prefer to have some, if I can, have some hands-on, some personal experience, which I have now. So this is a sort of a follow-up to a video I did about a 60 Minutes interview that came out, I don't know, a few months back, which I was frankly somewhat offended by. I just thought the entire position was, again, this doctor, this lady doc that was on 60 Minutes, and she basically told everybody that weight loss had nothing to do with what they ate, how they exercised, nothing. Basically 90% of it was in their brain and so forth. So this is a follow-up to that, because, I mean, the push that she was making was basically mostly for these GLP-1 agonist drugs, but others too, but in particular, that's sort of where this went. So I was planning to make a video about this topic at some point, once I felt that I had the information that I could feel comfortable supplying that would be useful to people, that I could summarize kind of the big picture stuff as I tend to do, and make it approachable and so forth. So that's where we're at. I'm going to discuss GLP-1 agonists, of which I have been getting a fair amount of questions, and that 60 Minutes interview video I will, of course, link in this one or post it below. So, experience-wise, background-wise, like I say, I've read, a lot of the papers, but in this particular one, of course, there's a lot of papers on its use for diabetes, but in weight loss, there's been two doctors, weight loss specialists that I have been communicating with who have extensive clinical experience with these drugs. So I've gotten to have good conversations with them. One I had dinner with the other night, really got a lot of really good info from her. She's a really experienced, smart lady who's got a lot of experience and knowledge about these drugs. I have at this point advised probably a handful of people myself. I'm not a doctor. I can't write prescriptions, but I do advise individuals regularly, semi-regularly, depending on my own schedule. So having some hands-on experience, not a lot of people. I mean, if anybody looked at a study that had a handful of people in it, obviously they would say, well, this is way too small a study to be of value. So this is just subjective, I guess, information, but in the totality of things, I think it's useful info. It certainly made me more confident again as to working with people on their general changes, the use of the drug, and we'll get into that a little bit in a second. So at this point, I feel, like I say, I can give useful information that people will find of value in a easy to approach, not technical way. So I am also going to say a few things that are not going to make those, if they ever see this video, those particular doctors happy, though I'll explain why that is. Or should I just say is not going to make some doctors who are prescribing these medications happy. They're not going to like what I have to say on a particular point. So, obvious question, do they work? Yes. Yes, they do work. These are effective drugs for weight loss. How effective is somewhat varying by how much weight the person has to lose. They seem to be perhaps less effective on really heavy people that have a lot of weight to lose, but that would make sense because, again, the feedback mechanisms by people that have excessive weight are not working. They're dysregulated, as we would say, and so that would make some sense. But they do work. The the process, basically, I don't know who came up with this expression, but I thought it was a good expression that basically they are a Thanksgiving dinner in a pill or in a shot. That is to say that people, it really makes cuts down on people's appetite. They feel fuller from much less food, which means less calories. The food stays in their digestive system longer. There are feedback mechanisms, of course, glucagon-like peptides, agonists that reduce appetite, cause feedback in the brain, and so forth. Exactly how these peptides work down to every mechanism and so is not totally clear. We'll talk about that in a second too. So one thing that I have also found with the people I worked with, and one of the docs, she agreed as far as her clinical experience. Short-term side effects, are known as far as like nausea. Some people have thrown up, and so forth, and that can be, at least in my small experience, that can be completely avoided by simply starting at a very low dose and titrating up. I don't know why more people don't do that, or more doctors don't do that, but in my experience with a handful of people, none of them had those side effects. They started off at about a quarter of the full dose, and worked their way up over every couple of weeks, increasing the dose. Two, I will say that none of the people, one person out of maybe 11 or 12 people actually even made it to the full dose. Most of the other people actually have had excellent responses from about half the dose. And there is no particular reason that one has to get to the full dose if they are getting beneficial effects from lower doses, right? I don't think in the medical field a lot of people are that creative enough to try lower doses to see if they have a benefit. Why start at the highest doses? But in a lot of cases, certainly the people that I have spoken to who had problems, the short-term side effects, were put on the highest dose, started right off on the highest dose, and their body didn't like it, and they felt really awful. And some of them did adjust, and some of them didn't. So if one is considering it, start off on about a quarter of the dose. And I can't give you those because the different brands have different doses, and of course there's oral. There's most of them are injectables, but they are of course doing studies with oral tablets. And some of them, of course, there's generics. That would be a different discussion. So if one is considering it, or if one has had problems titrating the dose up, and you may never even get to the full dose. And of course, how do you decide? Well, you decide that, of course, is if it is doing what you're hoping it does, which is you're losing weight, you've suppressed your appetite enough to continue losing weight at a steady rate. If people that start off requiring a lot of weight loss, obviously may start off losing a lot of weight quickly, and it tends to slow down. But I at least am generally working with people that need to lose, want to lose, should I say, 20, 30 pounds somewhere. And I've known people at 50, 60 pounds. I have not personally worked with anybody in the say more morbidly obese category that had 100 pounds to lose. So that's not the type of people I tend to work with. So there's other people that you can follow their Twitter feed, like Dr. Nordosky. I'll put that underneath. He has a lot of clinical experience with these drugs. So long-term potential side effects, we'll talk about that. Let's see. So the question, one of the questions is, the realities of the problems is, who do these drugs really work for? As far as temporary weight loss, basically they'll work for everybody. But the reality is that the person that these drugs are really going to work for are those that are willing to make permanent lifestyle changes to keep the weight off. Now, I have nothing against the idea of a relatively safe medication, drug, hormone, what have you, that allows people to not feel like they're starving all the time, make it easier for them to make those lifestyle changes, those permanent lifestyle changes, and use the drug for a period of time. That might be 6 months to a year. Some people it may be longer, depending again on how much weight they have to lose and so forth. But I really think that 1 year time frame is probably what to shoot for, give or take. But the people that are going to get the best effect from this drug are going to be the people that are making during that time of using this drug permanent lifestyle changes, i.e. improving their nutritional intake, regular exercise, some supplementation, and so forth. With the very specific plan of when they reach a goal that they're going to stop using these drugs. And they should also titrate off them. So again, while I would not start with the full dose, I would also not end with the full dose. I would again discuss with your doctor, whoever is, about titrating off. And there's nothing wrong with it, taking several months to titrate from whatever dose you're onto back down again to zero. Again, this is an area that I don't think a lot of medical professionals do a great job with, the titration of drugs up and down. Now, not every drug obviously needs to be titrated up and down, but another discussion. But there are a fair number of them where people will benefit. So if you are willing and able and focused on doing full lifestyle, permanent lifestyle changes, adding these drugs in, I'm all for it. I will tell you what will happen, which this is what most people do, obviously. This is why we know that statistically speaking, the difficult part is not getting the weight off. The difficult part, statistically speaking, is keeping the weight off. This is why, I think, unfortunately, many medical professionals looking at the statistics have basically come to the conclusion that diet and exercise do not work. Literally, do not work. Now, statistically speaking, they're right, unfortunately. But again, I and other people have had experience with people that it absolutely does work because but unfortunately, a very small number of people that lose a lot of weight, or even some weight, but let's say a lot of weight, are going to keep it off. Statistically, their likelihood of keeping it off is very low because they are not going to make permanent lifestyle changes. They are going to go on some crash diet or whatever, they're going to lose a bunch of weight, and then they're going to put it all back on. So what is going to happen with this drug, no different than anything else, is if you do not make those permanent changes, you are going to, at some point, if you just use that drug as a crutch to lose the weight without making the needed changes, you will come off the drug and you will put it all back on. And this is going to bring me to my not so popular position about this drug that we're going to get to in a second. But I do want to address one comment that I know I've seen come out. Some people are going to say the same thing. Well, why not you just do it the old-fashioned way with diet and exercise, because we know that works and so forth. And I kind of addressed it before, but I want to just address it straightforward here and now, which is I have nothing against people using something. If the risk to benefit favors the use of something, whether it's a drug, whatever, and it helps them make that transition to permanent weight loss easier, I'm all for it. I don't have any problem with that. I don't see any moral superior in suffering. When people say, why not do it the old-fashioned way? Well, we used to remove teeth without Novocaine. I'm not doing it. I don't care if it's the old-fashioned way. We used to do all kinds of things without drugs that were made life easier. And so the issue is always going to be risk-benefit. Now, if this particular drug, had a really high risk of awful things happening and didn't have much value in weight loss, well, obviously it would be a no. We also know, as far as long-term risks of these drugs, they're very low, but they're not without risk. There is some association to cancers, which is another reason why, again, the use of these drugs, you're going to be best off using them for a limited amount of time versus indefinitely. But the serious side effects that are associated with these drugs, there's pancreatitis, but when they see serious side effects, they are generally long-term, because these drugs have been around a long time for diabetes. So there is a fair amount of clinical experience with them. Clinical experience in terms of obesity is newer, But as far as just usage, as far as diabetes, they've been around a long time. So my basic take home, like you say, I don't think anybody should pass judgment on people that are using these drugs if they are making all of the other appropriate lifestyle changes for permanent weight loss. I don't see anything wrong with making your life easier or better. If you can afford the drugs, they are a little bit pricey, and I don't think anyone should really throw that out there. I do think that we should not pass judgment on the people that aren't doing it, because only they're the ones that are going to have to pay the price for this. I mean, you're not going to pay the price. Yes, we all know what's going to happen with those people, which is unfortunately going to be most people. A vast majority of people are just going to take the drug and do very little to nothing for permanent changes. And when and if they come off, they are just going to put the weight back on. And again, it's a shame. It's too bad. I think there's going to be way too many. There's too much money in it, and too many clinics opening up, offering these drugs that may or may not even make lip service to recommending or directing people to make those lifestyle, those permanent changes. But I just don't think it's going to happen. And so, yes, those people, though it's easy to be judgmental about them, they're the ones who are going to have to pay the price. Other potential uses. Now, some really interesting things going on with these drugs. The other potential uses. So, what has happened with these drugs is that through feedback of users, what they're finding is that people say that they have lost all interest in things like alcohol, various drugs. They even seem to have improvements on like OCD behavior. And so now they're looking into the use of GLP-1 agonists for like alcoholism and drug use and so forth, which is really interesting. How it's doing that. So there's clearly more going on with these drugs than just appetite suppression. And what they think is happening is the drug is working through the dopamine reward pathways. There may be a more general dopamine reward pathway effect here, that people stop searching dopamine type high, dopamine release through alcohol, through drugs, through even OCD like behaviors and OCD behaviors they think are attached to dopamine. So that's a really promising and interesting area of research that could be really promising. So keep that in mind. So here's the part. I'm going to finish off with saying something, a negative part is sort of a general, not necessarily about the drugs, but honestly more about the pharmaceutical industry and the medical machine writ large. What is happening and is going to happen, what's already happening, and even by that horrific 60 Minutes interview that I'll link to, is that disease, obviously obesity is now really being viewed as a disease. It's pretty much accepted as a disease within a large margin. Most, I don't know about, let's say many, I don't know about most, but within the medical community, within large medical organizations and so forth, obesity is now really viewed as a disease that they are going to treat as a disease model. And the reality is that the real money is if you cure somebody, one drug, you cure them, you make some money. If you kill somebody, obviously there's no money. The real money is in chronic disease treatment, i.e. diabetes and others. And that's where the money is going to be with these drugs. What's going to happen is the chronic disease model will be applied to it, and basically people will be on these drugs forever. That's not to say. I think it's problematic. It's not like there's a group of guys sitting around in suits in a dark room planning this out, some sort of conspiratorial thing. It's not how it works. It's just the nature of the business, because it is a business. The nature of reality is that those models that tend to be the most profitable. As we live in a society that we live in, and the way the companies work, are those that are going to float, are going to make their way to the top. And so what really bothers me is I'm bouncing around a little bit because I just started thought of the two doctors. I do want to be clear that the two doctors, like Dr. Nordosky, he's really big on exercise and weightlifting and nutrition. I got to give him that. The other doctor who I spoke to, she's also really does a great job with that. They don't just lip service this, but I do think that on the larger scale, when you literally have doctors, big doctors, mucky muck level doctors, telling people on national television that diet and exercise or their weight has nothing to do with anything they ate, anything they've done, any decisions they've made. If that attitude is pervasive, which it is, then obviously what's going to happen is there's going to be millions of people basically on these drugs forever, because there really will be no effective model that really gets into lifelong changes in behavior and nutrition and exercise and all that. And so that's what really bothers me and puts me off a bit about this. But it's inevitable. I mean, I think it's unfortunately it's an inevitable thing. And again, you have to look at this to some degree from the doctor's perspective. I mean, up until really recently, they really had nothing to offer people for weight loss in terms of like obese people, and of course the population, as we all know, is getting obesity rates are going up. And from a medical doctor's perspective, they really didn't have much to offer. All they could really do is refer them to a nutritionist and give them a sort of a lecture to eat better and stuff. But they really had nothing, like phentermine or whatever to offer. And doctors really have minimal to no background in nutrition and exercise physiology and that type of thing. And I did a video on that. Also, I'll link that down. And so they really, for them, this is actually kind of an exciting time to be able to offer people something that is effective and works. I mean, they want to help people. They want people to do better. They want people to lose weight, because by losing weight, substantial amounts of weight, I mean, all kinds of benefits. I mean, their blood sugar gets better, their diabetes improves or goes away, blood pressure goes down. I mean, the metabolic benefits of just general weight loss are so large. And if you're a medical professional who up until fairly recently has had not really been able to offer people anything, that must be really exciting, and it must feel great to be able to help patients, because that's what they're there for. But I do, my issue, I say, what kind of turns me off about these drugs, and it's already happening. I'm seeing like clinics opening up, offering, just pushing these drugs. I've seen some posters already, just like TRT clinics and stuff, like saying, weight loss drug X per month, call us now. There's an 800 number. And so what's going to happen, like I say, is that there is just going to be a chronic disease model of obesity that will just be these drugs and others. There actually are some pretty interesting and beneficial drugs for obesity that are being developed, and I think that there will be, along with GLP-1 agonist, some effective, fairly safe meds that will help people get the weight off and keep it off. But unfortunately, what will be lost among the shuffle is going to be permanent lifestyle changes, nutrition and healthy eating and all that. So that's just really what bugs me, and that's where that's just going to be a massive moneymaker. So on an individual level, the individual watching this, if you do it correctly and you work with a good medical professional, these drugs can definitely be of value to you if you are doing this properly. On the larger population scale, I'm very pessimistic about how this is going to play out. So I hope that helps. Hope that's information that helped you guys that wanted to sort of the down, easy to understand, approachable explanation of GLP-1 agonists. Obviously, this is brought to you by Alpha Joe. Feels good, tastes good, it's good for you, and I'll see you all on the Brink Zone.